Hey everyone! Today we'll be talking about all of the most influential thinkers and leaders of the Enlightenment Era. We are basing this off of Chapter 23, Atlantic Revolutions in the World. The people we'll be discussing are John Locke, Voltaire, Montesquieu, Olympe de Gouges, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Adam Smith, and Mary Wollstonecraft. These are the people who made the most difference in terms of philosophy during this time period. Before we go into the leaders of this era, let's go over what the Enlightenment Era really is. The Enlightenment Era existed through the 1700s, specifically between 1715 and 1789. It continued and ended right around the 1800s. It was widely known as the Century of Philosophy, the Age of Reason, and many others. It dominated the world with new ideas and intellect by several different people with different ideologies. These ideas coming from these specific people influenced everyone during the Enlightenment Era in Europe. These leaders and their ideologies changed every time period afterwards. The first leader we're going to be talking about is John Locke. He was born in England in 1632 and died in 1704. Locke was one of the most influential thinkers of this time period because of his ideas about government and freedom. He was one of the factors that shaped the American Revolution. Locke developed his views as a result of growing up during the 30 Years' War, which lasted from 1638 to 1648. This impacted his own beliefs and pushed him to use them to impact others. He had also grown up as a Christian, so his Christian views influenced his life as well. John Locke's main concern was focused on government structure and how the whole system works. The following ideologies are what made him such an influential leader during the Enlightenment Era. He believed that every individual person, regardless of sex and race, is entitled to their own personal rights. This includes rights such as freedom and privacy, along with others. He felt that this was necessary to promote equality among people. His ideas about government, on another hand, involve compromise. Locke believed that everyone should come to an agreement by meeting in the middle with each of their ideas to form a functional government. This would result in success, according to Locke. Voltaire is the second leader that is going to be addressed in this video. He was born in 1684 and died in 1778. He was a very successful French author. This brought a lot of attention to him, which contributed to why he became such a popular leader during this time period. Voltaire had promoted the right to free speech and practice of religion, and this is what he was primarily known for. He had done this by writing about it in two of his more popular works. These works are what stood out to people. They displayed unjust treatment of men by wealthier and more powerful peers. Furthermore, Voltaire disapproved of the idea of religion. He believed that you should be free to speak as you please, even if people around you disagree with or fight you on it. The third leader we're going to talk about is Montesquieu. Montesquieu is one of the few other French leaders of the Enlightenment Era. He was born in 1689 and he died in 1755. As well as a writer, he was also a trained jurist. He had strong beliefs in separation of state powers and a classification system of government. What created his strong influence was his popular work, Spirit of Laws. This heavily influenced how our government should work and established the idea of separation of powers. According to Montesquieu, 3 branches of power were necessary in government: the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. He felt that different forms of government should be classed differently based on what each one stands for. The fourth leader of the Enlightenment Era we're going to be discussing is Olympe de Gouges, who is both an abolitionist and a feminist. She was born in southwestern France in 1748, and she died in 1793. As well as an abolitionist and a feminist, she was a writer and a social reformer too. Olympe de Gouges was a woman of fighting for her beliefs. She challenged other people on views of maternity hospitals, divorce, orphans, and general rights of women. She went on to publish many works, her most famous being the Declaration of the Rights of Women. She, like John Locke, believed that all people are equal regardless of sex and race. She never stopped fighting for equality for women because they deserved to have the same rights as men. She had also felt passionately about the following marriage rite. A child born outside of a marriage needs to be treated the same as a child who was. Jean-Jacques Rousseau is the fifth Enlightenment Era leader we're going to be covering. He is a very important one too because his idea of the development of a modern citizen is one of his most influential and known ideologies. Rousseau had a massive impact on the 18th century. The main point he tried to get across in all of his works is that humans are naturally good, but modern civil society ruined them. This is where the development of a modern citizen comes into play, but we'll save that for the next slide. Additionally, Rousseau believed in popular sovereignty. If you're unfamiliar with the phrase, it basically refers to a government that's run by the people, not just one person. Liberty for all people and morality were essential in life, according to Rousseau. As I mentioned in the last slide, Jean-Jacques Rousseau had created the development of a modern citizen since he felt that modern civil society ruins humans even though they are naturally good. The first step is working at some kind of craft or skill rather than relying on remembering things as a way of learning. A craft or skill is more beneficial for your future. The second step is living far away from any kind of civilization. He believed civilization was corrupt. He had felt that it was better to distance yourself from it. Learning about nature is a kind of knowledge Rousseau felt was essential. Growing up, every young boy should explore the outdoors and take in as much as he can about the nature around him. He believed the only way to do this was to put space between yourself and civilization. A man who follows this way of life will be able to take care of himself throughout his life. Adam Smith was a Scottish philosopher who was born in 1723 and died in 1790. He is also part of the influential leaders of this time period. Smith redesigned ideas for the economy. He believed in classical economics. There were many influential documents that existed and gained quite a bit of popularity during the Enlightenment era, but among the most influential was On the Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. This is where laissez-faire came about. This was the economic doctrine that advocates freeing economies from government control and even intervention. In addition, the concept of the invisible hand came directly from Adam Smith. The invisible hand referred to how actions made by self-interested people resulted in social benefits that were unintentional. Mary Wollstonecraft is one of the few female leaders of this time period we're going to be talking about. Wollstonecraft was an English writer and philosopher who was born in 1759 and died in 1797. Her main priority was philosophizing the lack of equality between men and women, much like Olympe de Gouges. She believed women are on the same level as men and should be considered equal. They appear as though they are not equal because they are less educated, which is not their fault. Wollstonecraft published A Vindication of the Rights of Women in 1792, which emphasizes her point further. She fought for the same level of education for both men and women because she believed that it's the key to ending this stereotype. It gives all women more educational opportunities to help them gain equality. There was quite a bit of influence spread by three different countries during the Enlightenment era. It was primarily spread by Japan, China, and the USA. Japan's focus was their Dutch studies, which was when European information was brought by Dutch traders. China reflected on issues of good government and individual capacities within their imperial system. The USA's influence involved Ben Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson. They used practical and political efforts to make improvements such as run new businesses, design new buildings, and conduct new science experiments.